for today, we're going to talk about solving linear systems by elimination. So far there is 3 different ways that you can solve a systems of equations. And can anyone tell me what is a systems of equations? What are we trying to figure out here?
Where 2 lines crossing.
We're trying to figure out the systems of equations, yes. We're trying to figure out where 2 lines cross, right? A systems of equations is 2 or more, you could have more, lines crossing. So the first way we figured out how to do this was what? By what method? By graphing, okay? So by actually drawing the pictures and figuring out where they cross. What was the second way that I showed you last week? Substitution, right? Substitution is where you get one letter completely by itself and you plug it in to find the other one. Today, we're going to talk about something called the elimination method. And basically, you can eliminate, okay, or cancel out, okay? You can eliminate variables in equations in a linear system. So that means when you have straight lines to obtain or to get a new equation in one variable. This method is called solving by elimination. Okay, we call the elimination method or the addition method. Okay, it's kind of called both depending on who you ask. Okay, so elimination or addition method. So for example 1, we are going to eliminate using addition. So the first step here is to choose the variables to eliminate. Okay, or to cancel out. Choose the variables to eliminate. And the way you choose the variables is you figure out which coefficients, and coefficients is another word for what? What are coefficients? Numbers in front, okay, are opposites, and you're going to add the equation. So we want to look at these 2 equations. There's always going to be 2, and you're going to look at them. And I want you to think of, if I add the 2 together, is there going to be a letter that's going to cancel out? If I add these 2 equations together, like in a line, will one of the letters cancel out? Yes, the x is going to cancel, okay? This is what you want. And today, all of your equations are going to be nice and simple where like it's pretty obvious which letter is going to cancel out. So here, literally, you're going to just add these 2 together. Yeah.
Can I get a paper?
Okay, so we are literally going to add these 2 equations together. Negative 3x, positive 3x, these are going to cancel out. That's the goal here. Then we just add these together in columns. So negative 2y and positive 4y gives you what? 2y equals negative 3 and positive 15 gives us what? 12. Then your second step is to solve the resulting equation. So solve means get the letter by itself. So how could I get y by itself? Divide both sides by 2. Okay, so you're going to divide both sides by 2. Sorry, I'm getting a different color. So divide both sides by 2. And yes, you will get that y equals 6. Now, what's the point here? What's the goal? We're trying to get a what?
Solution.
A solution or a point where these 2 cross. Okay? So here, did I find the whole point where they cross yet? No, what did I find? I just found the y portion. So you're getting a point here. So the second portion is going to be 6. Do I know the first part of the answer yet? No. So here, what do you think you're going to do? Plug in the answer into one of the equations and solve for the other variable. Exactly. So we're going to plug in. Now, you can choose either one of these. Does not matter which one you're plugging into. So do you want to pick the first one or the second one? I'm going to pick the second one because it doesn't look like it has as many negatives to deal with. You could pick either one though. Okay, so we're going to plug in y for 6. So 3x plus 4 multiplied by 6 is equal to 15. And make sure whatever equation you're plugging into, you're not taking part from the first one, part from the second one. Make sure you're plugging in all of the same one. So 3x plus 4 times 6 is 24 equals 15. I'm sorry, the room's a little goofy here, so I'm going to rewrite this down here. 3x plus 24 equals 15. Now, I'm going to start solving for x. What do I have to do first?
Subtract 24.
Move the 24. Okay, and if it helps you, you can put that wall there. So 3x equals 15 minus 24 gives us what?
Negative 9.
Negative 9. And then to get x by itself, what are you going to have to do? Divide by 3. So we got x equals what? Negative 3. Now, that's not your whole answer. Remember, the whole answer is a point. Okay? And you have to write this as a point, just like this. And it has to be x, comma, y. It also has to be in parentheses. If you don't put it in parentheses, it's going to be wrong. I know that seems picky, but as you get into harder math classes, these little tiny details become really important, okay? Because it can mess you up otherwise. So that's it. That's your answer. Negative 3, comma 6. Okay? Now let's look at number 2. Let's try another one. First thing you want to do is choose the variables to eliminate or to cancel out. Okay, so choose the variables to eliminate whose coefficients are opposite. So that means one is a positive, one is a negative. So here, if you look at this one, is it obvious that one letter is going to cancel out? I hope so. Which one's going to cancel out? The y. So literally, you're going to add together the equations. These y's will cancel out. Okay? 2x plus 3x gives you what? 5x is equal to 1 and 14 is 15. So now we're going to solve the resulting equation. Okay, so if we have 5x equals 15, how can I solve for x? And I just wrote that down again. Divide both sides by 5. Okay. Divide both sides by 5, we get x equals 3. So the first part of my answer is 3. Then what am I going to have to do? Plug in, right. So plug in the answer into one of the equations and solve for the other variable. It does not matter which of these equations you use. Either one will work. Okay? Do you want to use the first one or the second one? Second one? And like I said, it really does not matter. So 2 multiplied by 3, 2 times 3, plus 2y equals 14. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2y equals 14. Then what do?
Subtract 6.
Move the 6, so minus the 6 from both sides. Subtract the 6, we got 2y equals 14 minus 6 is 8. And then to get y by itself, divide by 2. Okay, divide by 2, you get y equals 4. Okay, so what's the actual solution to this equation? 3, comma 4. Okay, the solution to this system is 3, comma 4. Do we have questions on how I did that? Okay, that's your notes for today. Now, I am also going to show you a little bit of your homework, okay? Because there's these notes, I did not make them, and there's a couple things that are a little bit more complicated on your homework. So if you guys would get out your homework papers, okay, we're doing 8.5, okay? They look kind of like this. I'm going to show you just a couple more examples, so I'm going to do a little bit more for you on your homework, okay? The first one I'm going to do, so I want you to go to the second page of your homework, and I'm going to show you number 7. Okay, number 7 is just a little bit different. Not that much harder, but it takes it one more step. If you look at number 7, is it obvious that one of the letters is going to cancel out?
Yeah.
Almost, right? It looks like the x's are almost exactly the same, but they're both negative. In order for something to cancel out, you have to have one be positive and one be negative. So if they're both exactly the same, when you add them together, nothing's going to cancel out. So what you have to do here is you actually have to multiply. If you want one to be positive, one to be negative, how can you change its sign? What would you have to do? What would you have to multiply by?
By negative 3.
By a negative 1, okay? Not by 3. Okay, multiply by negative 1. So, in order to get something here, do we all agree that we want the x's to cancel out, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to be a lot easier than 7 and 9. So, to get something to cancel out, you have to multiply one of the equations by a negative. You multiply all the parts. You can pick the top one or the bottom one, does not matter. And you're just going to change all the signs. So for this one, I'm going to change this. I'm going to multiply this by negative, so I'm going to change that to a positive. From negative to positive. And this one from positive to a negative. So if something isn't going to cancel out all by itself to start with, You have to multiply so that it will. Now, if we add together these two equations, is something going to cancel out?
Yes.
What cancels?
X.
The x. Then, 7y plus 9y becomes what? 16y equals, what's negative 9 and negative 23?
Negative 32.
Negative 32. Okay, could we solve from there? How do I get y by myself? By itself. Divide by 16. Divide by 16, we get y equals what?
2.
Y equals what?
2.
Negative 32 divided by 16, negative 2. You guys have to be really, really careful with these positives and negatives because there's a lot of sign errors that I'm seeing. So a lot of people are just losing the negative. It just floats off. That is not allowable, okay? So the y portion is negative 2. Make sure if you don't solve for x first that you're putting it in the right spot. It's always x comma y. Okay, so negative 2. Now, how do I solve for the rest of everything? What do we do? Plug it in, exactly. Okay, so you pick which equation, does not matter which one. I'm going to choose this first one just because it looks like it might be easier. So x stays x plus 7 multiplied by negative 2. So I'm plugging in the negative 2 equals negative 9. Then x negative, or 7 times negative 2 is minus 14 equals negative 9. How am I going to solve that? What do I have to do? Add the 14. If I add the 14, we get x equals, what's negative 9 and positive 14?
5.
Positive 5. So these two equations would cross at the point 5 comma negative 2. 5 negative 2. Anyone have a question on how I did that? Okay, now I want to look at, let's look at number 9. Okay, look at number 9. Is it obvious which letter you want to try to cancel out?
Yeah.
Which one, the x's or the y's?
Y.
The y's, okay? If I add them together right now, will anything cancel? No. What would I have to do to get something to cancel? Multiply by a negative. Okay, do you want to multiply the first one or the second one by a negative? Second one, that's fine. Okay, so multiply everything. So negative, negative. This one's going to change to a plus. Okay, and I would definitely suggest using a different color or something just so it helps you. Then when we add these together, 3x minus x gives you what? 2x. What's positive y and negative y? They go away. If something doesn't cancel, you messed up. Okay, you have to have something cancel. So equals negative 21 and positive 5 gives you what? Negative 16. Then to get x by itself, divide everything by 2. So that leaves you x equals what?
Negative 8.
Negative 8. Okay, so negative 8 is the first part of your answer. Then how am I going to solve to find the other part? Plug it back in. You want to plug it in the first one or the second one? Second one? That's fine. If you plug into the second one, bless you. If you plug into the second one, remember, this is a negative. Negative times negative 8, okay, don't lose those negatives, minus y equals a positive 5. Negative, negative turns into a positive. So 8 minus y equals 5. How do you solve from there? Subtract the 8. Subtract the 8. Negative y equals 5 minus 8 is what?
3.
5 minus 8 is negative 3. What happens when you have negatives on both sides? You divide it away. We get y equals positive 3. So what's the actual point that they cross? Negative 8, positive 3. So at that point. Questions? Or are we good? Do you want me to keep going?
Yes.
Okay, what about number 11? What would you do for number 11? Is there something that's going to cancel out? Is there a letter that's going to cancel out?
X.
Yes. So do I have to multiply by anything?
No.
No. Okay. X minus x, what happens?
0.
That goes away. Y minus y, what happens?
They go away.
They go away. So what's left on the left side of this equation?
0.
0. It's not just blank, it's 0. Okay, what happens when you add 10 and 4?
14.
Get 14. Does 0 ever equal 14?
No, there is no solution.
No. So what does it mean if you get a false equation?
No solution.
No solution. So basically these are what kind of lines to each other? They're not false to each other, but how are they related to each other?
They're parallel.
They would be parallel, right? Okay, they would be parallel because they have the exact same slope. So that's a no solution. So if everything cancels out on one side but not on the other side, that's no solution. Now, tomorrow we're going to get into some that look like number 12. So there's a bunch of numbers. You just add those together right now. Is anything going to cancel? No. Does it look like I could just multiply by a negative and something would cancel? No. So sometimes you can't just multiply by a negative. You have to multiply by a number. Is there any numbers I can multiply by
4.
to get, do we want to cancel out the x's or the y's? The x's, that's fine. So if I have a positive 2 and a positive 8, what can I multiply by to get this x to cancel? Close. If I multiplied by 4, I'd have 8 and 8. Negative 4, right. You have to multiply by a negative. So I'm going to multiply everything here by negative 4. Okay, if I multiply everything through, instead of just rewriting it on the problem like this, I want you to actually write it underneath. So what's negative 4 times 2x? Minus 8x. What's negative 4 times negative 3y?
Plus 12y.
Plus 12y. Can't see it. Sorry. What's negative 4? So we're distributing here. What's negative 4 times positive 8?
Negative 32.
Negative 32. Now, if I add things together, what happens with the 8x and the negative 8x? They cancel. What about the negative 12y and the positive 12y?
Cancel.
They cancel. So what's left on this left side of the equation? 0. What happens with 32 minus 32?
They cancel each other.
They cancel. So what's left on the right side of the equation?
0.
0.
So infinite.
What do you think it means if it's 0 equals 0?
Infinite solution.
Infinite solution. So if you get a true equation, that means infinite solutions. So basically, if you were to graph that, these lines are the same line. They would be on top of each other. Okay, they touch at every single point. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so those are your two special cases. I basically just did like almost half your homework. So you guys have seen all the different possible things here, okay? So you are going to finish the rest of this. If you finish it in class, of course, you get extra credit. Okay, you are totally capable of doing this. So I want you to get to work on it, please. Thank you.